Welcome back to episode number 2 of the State of the Phightins podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Harper, joined alongside Ian Copey. How are you doing tonight?
We're doing great tonight.
So the Phillies come off the homestand. Honestly, a little bit disappointing against the Angels and Red Sox, splitting the homestand, going 3-3. What are your thoughts on? Well, let's start with the Angels series first. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe that series, first off, I would say give us a great perspective of how great this pitching rotation is, our starting rotation here. You saw Luzardo not do well first to go around, then came in Taiwan Walker again. He's just been you can never be you can't take him for granted. Along with even the last day, what was that? So I'm blanking out who was pitched that final day.
I think it was Ranger. Ranger pitched
It
that
was
final
Ranger,
game.
yeah. He had the rain delay and just couldn't get himself. It just wasn't the Ranger we've been used to all year. So I'd say, yeah, that series was mainly a pitching meltdown. And I'd tell you, that Angels team, they came in, they weren't playing like the regular old Angels. That was a team that, hey, weren't taking they were taking what was given to them. And yeah, they didn't mess around. I gotta say, I like what I saw from Jose Soriano, and even the other night. I mean, that their bullpen is garbage, but hey, their starting pitching wasn't too bad. Coming out of the All-Star break, Phillies, they've had an on and off history there, but everybody's coming off the 5 days rest. Again, a little bit of a disappointing series, but yeah, you bounce back. What are your thoughts on the series overall?
Well, at the end of the day, I think it was a winnable. I think any series is a winnable series, but especially a series like that, considering you had them on the ropes in game one. You're up 4-1 early. Second game, you won, and then the third game, again, another winnable game. You could say the umpire screwed the Phillies over, but again, he didn't allow 3 more runs after the ball 4. So the Phillies, it really showed they have a starting pitching issue as well, to a point. Ranger, he's fine. He has the bad start here and there, but he's still a really good pitcher. We'll get to Luzardo later, and then Taiwan Walker. He's not a bad pitcher, but I don't know if we really want Taiwan Walker starting games when it matters for the Phillies coming down the stretch. So I feel like they have more of a starting rotation issue, but their bullpen also has issues for the Phillies. But again, the Angels, they're just playing well right now. They're playing a good brand of baseball. I like what I saw out of Taylor Ward and Joe Adell. Hopefully maybe they could be future Phillies, but as a team, they played a pretty good game of baseball all 3 games in the series against the Phillies. For a team that isn't supposed to make the playoffs and probably won't make the playoffs, it was a pretty good showing this weekend against one of the best teams in baseball.
I would agree there. The thing with Taiwan Walker, I give all props to him, man. Going from starting the year, getting booed at the home opener, coming out and finally getting back some of his pitches that he didn't have at all last year. Then moving to the bullpen again. Now he's back in the starting rotation. He's probably going to get moved back to the bullpen in a few weeks when Aaron Nola returns. So I gotta say, I gotta give him props. It's just it's unfortunate watching him the other night. He didn't have any swing and miss stuff in his arsenal. Like he just didn't have the right movement there. Not exact necessarily the best location. And it's just you knew it wasn't gonna be like this is with Taiwan Walker we signed night. No, this was just average starting pitcher not having his best outing out there. I would say offense kind of died that night. It was a little unfortunate to watch. But yeah, and then even along with Ranger, he's the guy. I feel like I'm starting to feel like that rain delay messed him a little bit. He had went warmed up and sat in the bullpen for 45 minutes, then went out there. I could see he was leaving a little bit of stuff over the middle, not having his command. Again, he's another pitcher. When you're not going to be a thrower, when you're a thinker on the mound, like again, you're always pinpointing with your action. That's what we see from Ranger this year. That's why he's been so good. Just he keeps fooling hitters with these 90, 91 mile-an-hour pitches. So, and then one thing we haven't gone to yet was that Saturday game, offensive outburst, the Schwarber
Mm-hmm.
grand slam. That was sick. Why I was going into that at bat, I was like, all right, for me, he's been giving a lot of fastballs for strikes here. I'm just waiting for Kyle Shore sit back on a fastball. The first one he got, he almost sort of missed it in a bit, just getting it off a little too high off the bat. But hey, with his power, what did that ball have? 39-degree launch angle, up and out of here. That was
Yeah,
special to watch.
Kyle has been on a tear recently. He has been absolutely he's been the Phillies' best player and since the All-Star break. I don't know if that's it is debatable, but he has
I might have
been
to put
on.
Bryce Harper over that just because Bryce is getting on base a little bit more. But
Yeah,
maybe the stats could have me wrong there, but I think I've been more impressed with Bryce so far.
I,
But yeah,
I feel
Schwarber,
like it's
nothing
good
with
that
him.
we can even have a debate about that though. But the rest of
Exactly.
the offense kind of I feel like has to step up. We saw good things out of Bryson Stott, on Wednesday with the home run, the double. He was more aggressive on the base paths, so that was a really good thing to see. JT had a really good game Wednesday night, but the offense really, besides Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper, hasn't really been there recently for the Phillies. And that's something they need to get figured out. You don't want to have holes in your lineup, especially where you don't where you cannot back up the guys who are going to drive in most of the runs.
For sure, for sure. Like I'd say here, Trey Turner, he's batting 211 in his last 10 games here. Yeah, that's just a guy. He's probably just going through a little rough stretch. He's probably going to get it back. That there, not a real concern for me. I do remember Alec Boehm is absent now. Alec Boehm, you say what you want about him, but with his attitude and sometimes he's not a doubles hitter. The guy's still a hitter. He knows he finds his way on base. So I think when you get him back in a few weeks, I think he's only got about like a little over 3 weeks left till he's back. That could be
Yeah,
again
yeah, 3 weeks.
other absence. Nick Castellanos. I mean, he's the bat that you'll never figure out. He doesn't have much of an approach at the plate. I mean, his left on base numbers stink. But hey, recently in the cleanup spot with Bryce getting on, Nick has found himself knocking in some RBI singles. I'm like, wow, we're getting small ball offense out of Nick. Like this is what I love to see. Even though
I'm pretty
he's
sure
not always the home run hitter, I love to see the small
he
ball
had an
out.
RBI single. I know on Tuesday night and on Saturday night
Yeah,
in
just
this homestand. I
these
think he
simple
might have one or
RBIs.
two more.
These are situations that we saw earlier in the year. Oh shoot, here we go again. Nick Castellanos up by the plate. Phillies have runners in scoring position, but was he going to be chasing away in the zone? No, he found himself getting some hits. So, like the idea. Also, JT Realmuto hitting like over 340 since early June. Give him a lot of credit for that. But then after that, I believe the real offensive struggle here that you get is that bottom three in the order when you rotate between a Brandon Marsh, Emmanuel Sosa, Max Kepler, Otto Kemp, Bryson Stott. That's going to be the Phillies. I say a wild card. Like defense, like this is a group of guys. I think when you get to the playoffs, you don't want these guys to be the ones that get wiped away so easily. And even when game starts to mean a little more. I mean, I think right now with the position the Phillies are in, they're not going to be in games that are going to be super vital until they get to the playoffs. I think they'll be in some important games, but when it comes to like, oh shoot, this is boom or bust, make the playoffs or not, I think they're in a good spot so far. Even though the standings say otherwise, I think they won't be in themselves where like the backs against the wall, like win today or go home until they get to like elimination games.
Yeah,
Let's say.
because at the end of the day, the division isn't the most important thing when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the Phillies going to and having success this postseason. Right now, they sit as the 5 seed, 2 games back of the top wild card, which is Chicago, and they're only half game back in the division. They're 3 games above San Diego for the final wild card spot, and 4.5 up on the Giants, and 5.5 up on the Reds. So I think obviously nothing's a shoe in, especially in baseball, but I feel very I would say 100% confident that the Phillies are going to make the playoffs this year. The question is just where. So the games are going to ramp up. They're going to get the reinforcements they need when it comes from Alec Boehm. They're going to get Nola back. They're going to get Jose Alvarado back. They're going to get people, hitters and pitchers at the deadline that are going to come in. The question is, how long will it take for the Phillies to hit the stride they need to hit to win games before we get to tough stretches in September? Phillies always usually get cold in September. So if the Phillies
Yeah.
can, lock everything down before they get to that point, they'll be in a much better position going into October.
Yeah, and I think a lot about those September collapses from the Gabe Kapler and Joe Girardi era. They were ugly. It even almost happened in 2022. When I
Mm-hmm.
even think about 2008, that Phillies team went, I believe it was 20-9 in September going into the playoffs that year. So I think
Yep.
look, they got a rough schedule for September, but yeah, you go in playing good baseball. It doesn't matter who's on that schedule of yours. You give yourself a good chance to win. I think right now with Alex Boehm's injury, he does have a history though. He gets injured and isn't the same when he returns. I want to see. Hopefully he can learn from that. keep himself calm down, gets back and can find his way to get in the groove at the plate. Now let his head get it in front of him. You have a well-rested Nola. And that Jose Alvarado, it's going to suck not having him in the playoffs. I think, though, Jesus Luzardo would fill in that lefty spot after when it comes to the postseason. But from there, it's a I believe that I actually tweeted something earlier this week like, all right, if the Phillies go 5-6 these games between the deadline and the between the All-Star break and the deadline, I would say, yeah, it is kind of pitiful, but I can tolerate that because we don't need to play our best baseball end of July. It's just get you guys the deadline, and all of a sudden, boom, bang, you got about, what was it, 55 games after the deadline left?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you'd want to see the
Around
Phillies
that.
go on a run with, like, let's say, I don't know, a 31-24 uh, type run. So,
Which I think is definitely realistic. And the Phillies have the benefit. They're going into New York this weekend. They're going to take on the Yankees, who have been struggling recently. They have not been playing good baseball. They have not been playing clean baseball. They just lost 2 out of 3 to the Toronto Blue Jays. They lost that season series, and they're sitting in the fourth wild card spot, but it is close in between them, Seattle, and Boston. So they're not facing Max Fried this weekend. So if they could take 2 out of 3 in New York, you're facing the White Sox after that, who have the worst record in the American League. So if the Phillies, I think 4-2 is definitely realistic before the break. So
yes, not
if they could pull that off, they'll be in a good position, especially because the Mets, when it comes to games that matter, their pre-break games are the Giants on the road and the Padres on the road. So I think the Phillies are in a much better situation to probably gain ground on the Mets and potentially take over the division lead, or at least even take the lead over the Cubs for the first wild card. But I feel like they're in a good position going into this last 6 games before the deadline.
for sure, for sure. I mean, again, I'll pay attention to the Mets all I want. Hey, a lot of people say they're luck portions this season, but hey, I mean, hey, if you're going to be lucky, then that luck has to carry on to the postseason, which you haven't seen happen to a lot of teams. I find it interesting. You got a 3 game difference between the number 1 seed in the American League, the Red Hot Brewers, and the Phillies, and the 58 wins. So it's, again, I think that Mets division, we might have a 3 game lead on the Mets in a week from now, and then all of a sudden after that, Mets find themselves in first place towards the end of the month. And again, like it's been all season. These two teams are going to fluctuate. They're both going to finish in, like, let's say, the low 90s win total area. And again, that Yankee series coming up. The Yankees, yeah, they don't play the best fundamental baseball. Uh, it's a Rob Thompson homecoming. Uh, if you know Kate Maniscalco on all social media platforms, she makes the point about, she's a Yankees fan. Makes the point about it's how they lost the World Series. They just do not play good fundamental baseball. You run on this team, they'll make errors. This is where I hope to see somebody like Bryson Stott here hit one. He rips one down the line here. Try one all the way around. Pull out a double. Let's see, maybe you get a bad throw, all of a sudden that turns into a triple. So it's again, Yankees. Again, they're the mighty Yankees, but yeah, they're a pretty beatable team right now, and even their starting pitching is much worse situation than ours. So
Mm-hmm. And we have both Ranger and Zach Wheeler on the mound this weekend, which I
ooh,
think
that
is
would be fun.
huge.
For sure. Get them on their A game. That might be 2 wins in the bag.
Mm-hmm. And as well, we saw Stott take advantage of Lucas Giolito Wednesday night, taking that extra base, and I forget what inning that was, but he was able to make it to third. The Phillies didn't score there, but I think it would have been the third inning. He hit a double, and then before Giolito even pitched, he was able to take third without anyone looking. So that I feel like the Yankees are a team you have to take advantage of their miscues. The Phillies have won 1 game against the Yankees over the last 2 years, which is 6 games. So I feel like that's going to change this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think matching up that way, again, damn Yankees, catch them hey, look, this time last year, the Yankees caught us at the wrong time. They had their red hot gestures, and then um, even just the rest of the guys, their pitching was doing great. And what were we? We were just slumping our way after that, coming out of that All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, hey, try to flip that script here.
Yeah, 1-5 homestand, the first homestand out of the All Star break last year.
Oh, that was ugly.
But let's talk about the big thing next Thursday, which is the deadline. Uh, Tonight, when we are recording it, tomorrow when you're hearing it, yesterday when you're hearing it, the Mariners made the big trade, the first big trade of the deadline season, as they got Josh Naylor from the Arizona Diamondbacks for their 13th and 16th ranked prospect uh, on, according to MLB Pipeline. Uh, Naylor's the rental. The Diamondbacks just got swept by the Astros this week, so they're going to be selling. It's going to be about 5 to 6 more players that they're going to move. So, the question is, how do the Phillies attack this deadline this year? We talked about it last episode about who they could get at the deadline. Now the question is, who do they really get? Last year, the Friday before the deadline, is when the Phillies made the move to get Austin Hayes from the Baltimore Orioles. That Saturday, they made the trade to get Carlos Estevez from the Los Angeles Angels. They made their other two trades on Tuesday. That was one of the first, the big one, honestly, that people forget, is getting Tanner Banks from the Chicago White Sox. And the other one was getting Seth Johnson and Moises Chance from the Baltimore Orioles for Gregory Soto. So, with all that being said, the Phillies come into the deadline. From what it sounds like, from what I've been seeing online, is that the Phillies are going to go in big. They're going to go big or go home at this deadline.
Yeah, that's the obvious approach they need to have here. You mentioned though they went last year. They went early last year. They came out firing and that like early on, and so far here a week early we just got one deal. It's a much bigger sellers market this year, where I think you're gonna have so many teams like the White Sox. I keep looking at teams down in the league. You got Oakland, Baltimore, the Twins. They're gonna be listening to offers pretty much until the almost I would say around to the final hour till deadline, and then they'll pull the trigger on some of these offers. I mean, it's just how business is going to have to be done this deadline, unless some team offers something crazy. They offer it up straight up then and there. These selling teams have nothing to wait for, have nothing to not wait for, and nothing to lose. Again, I'd expect most of these. I think by the time you record next year is when we'll hear more of the trades rolling in. But I would say over the next 3 or 4 days, there's going to be more rumors heating up, and not necessarily a more trades happening. I think tonight's one with Naylor to Seattle. I believe that's might be a market setter for the rental market. Let's say, see, because everybody throws around these names like O'Neal Cruz today, which I found a little baffling. And I mean Byron Buxton, he's off the table now. I would just think of every player out there that's been out there, but they've all been guys with years of control. Felix Bautista, not Ryan Helsley though. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the names right here. But these are guys like they're with the years of control they have. It's not going to be just a 13 and 16 prospect that brings in these guys. And you got to even know with some of these rentals, or are they in a position where this team's not going to try to sign him at the end of the year? Because now you can't always just pull like a 2016-year-old as Chapman on how the Yankees shipped him off to the Cubs and then immediately brought him back signed him back the next year. You can't always work that with players. You don't want to piss them off at all. It'll make them move at all. So yeah, it's a market where I guess you got to know what rentals are for sale, and I still don't think we know that yet. And
Well, yeah,
there's
because
gonna be some
especially
surprises.
now, Bautista's probably off the table, considering he's just went on the IL today. He went on the 15 day with with another shoulder injury, just coming off of having Tommy John surgery. So he's probably off the table. And you look at the free agent class this upcoming year, it's not a very strong class, right? There's, Cincinnati, if they decide to sell, they can have some pieces like a Nick Martinez, like a Taylor Rogers, but it's not as strong as other years when it comes to the free agents. It is stronger though when it comes to the multi-year deal players. Where the Phillies have to strike, I think if they're going to go in, they have to go in all the way, and it starts. They got to get another corner outfielder. There's Max Kepler, but I feel like his time in Philadelphia is done. He was the last out on Wednesday night. I think that was probably his final at bat as a Philly in Citizens Bank Park. The question is, who do you get? Taylor Ward has been a name floated around. Adolis Garcia has been a name floated around. The Phillies have also had interest in Luis Robert. But I saw a tweet earlier from Bob Nightingale basically saying that the Mets have been more interested in Luis Robert than the Phillies. Those are the two teams really fighting it out for him. I think if the Phillies could put together the right package, Luis Robert would be perfect for this team.
For sure. And Um, yeah, Ribeiro changes scenery. We went over this last episode. You put him in a lineup with better protection, of course, along with just now again a change of scenery. I would trust his again his mechanics with Kevin Long. You could recreate the hitter that used to be an all star in Chicago. I've heard a lot of bad things about the hitting coaching situation out there in South Side of Chicago. So I obviously believe there's a chance there. I believe, and I think the Mets see the vision too. So yeah, you got to beat out David Stearns. Would I ever offer he puts on the table? And I mean, if he goes to the Mets, hey, it'll suck. But um, got to find a way. Got to find a way to come up with the right deals with this table. People got to keep in mind with Dave Dombrowski, you cannot he's not going to overpay, and he can't sell out the team for this deadline. Also, because sometimes not every problem on this team is also fixed by a new face. So if he doesn't believe it's worth the price tag, he will not do it, and people have to be fine with that. So we don't come away with our top players. Got to remember, you don't want this team all of a sudden to be in a complete mess until 2027 because oh shoot, we traded all our prospects for that one rental or that one guy we all wanted, whether it worked out or not for to win a ring.
And considering the Phillies aren't gonna, go in this offseason, it's not like they have a lot of money to play around with. Considering who's a free agent off this team, you're talking about your starting catcher is gone, he's a free agent. Your DH is gone, he's a free agent. Right now, everything stays. Max Kepler is a free agent at the end of the year, so that's a 30-year lineup is gone, and there's replacements. But the Phillies, their most important thing going into the offseason would be re-signing the guys they need to re-sign. At the same time, I feel like the rental market isn't strong, but I feel like there are certain players that it's smart to go heavy on. Lucas Urge, he's a reliever for the Kansas City Royals. He's having a really, really good year. He reminds me almost like Tanner Banks last year at the deadline on a team, AL Central, not having the best season, has years of control. Urge has a 2.43 ERA this season, and he would come off with about 4 years of arbitration after this season. So if the Phillies were to make a move, I feel like he would be a really good piece to go get to help establish the bullpen because we can't have guys like Seth Johnson pitching in the 11th inning in the 11th inning of a game when it gets down to the stretch. I feel like he would be a good piece. Wouldn't be that expensive. Maybe in that Naylor range, probably a little less, maybe like
I just think
16 to
maybe a little
20.
more
But
there.
that I don't know because the relievers are always a really challenging one. Like Tanner Banks, for example, he had like a 3 ERA coming into the deadline, and the Phillies didn't really have to part with much to get him. So if
For sure, it
Kansas
depends on
City,
how much of a. I would say sorry to interrupt. I would say it's more of a how much does Kansas City value him? Do they think all right, all those years of arbitration ahead of him? They might say, hey, we're gonna get back in a win now mode next year. Or they might say, no, we want to keep this guy. But then it's a guy they might repackage. Estevez might be repackaged. So I think that's the more realistic move we see out of Kansas City this year. I think they're gonna. I think that they're a team that's gonna try to stay young. It's with some of these telling teams. You got to look at who do you think? Oh, they're at the end of a window, and who isn't currently in just a failed window right now. Because that's the thing I see with the Orioles, the Orioles, the Baltimore Orioles, and the Kansas City Royals. Even maybe I could say Minnesota could be a team that they're looking at. This might be an end of a window type year for them. Cleveland Guardians. Are they at the end of a window, or are they just like no? We got to retry this again next year. So that's the difference when trying to trade, see how these young players are traded with a future. So
yeah, that's what it is at the end of the day, is seeing, and that's what's so interesting about who's selling at this deadline because you look at the teams like Atlanta, like Arizona, like Cleveland, like Minnesota, like Baltimore, like Kansas City. All these teams were fringe playoff teams or postseason teams last year, and now they're selling at the deadline. Are they trying to retool or rebuild? That's the big question that's going to be asked within the next week. Minnesota, I feel like, is probably going to send off one of their two relievers in between Jackson Duran if they get the right deal. Didn't seem like they're asking for that much in a deal. So I feel like that could be a realistic package. I don't know about for the Phillies, but definitely for another team because, like you said, the Phillies shouldn't part with a big name prospect at this deadline.
it just depends on how much they value that prospect and how much of a vision do they see? Again, we think about back to the days when Sixto Sanchez was the guy in one of these, shipped him off for JT Romito. Look how that worked out.
Hmm.
So yes, I think this is where I have to trust Dave Dombrowski and even the scouting team too. They're going to look at, hey, how much do we think we really value this guy? You even have to look at his position. Is there future here, and how much can we put a value on him to other teams? So I
And I
think
feel,
there is the
and what I'm
is
gonna
the
say sounds a lot like
drive.
Yankee talk, like what Boone and Cashman would say. But when you really look at it, when you put together Bohm, Nola, the potential addition of Justin Crawford to this team, that's like a trade deadline within itself. It would be frustrating if the Phillies don't go out and get another big, like a good player at the deadline. But when you look at those three combined with everybody else starting to hit stride, that's like a mini trade deadline right there for the Phillies, getting those three players potentially back to the roster and added to the roster.
That is for sure, and I think yeah, it is a good Boone and Cashman point there. I don't think they can come out as a deadline like the Twins did last year. They went, all right, no, we got all we need. No, I think they're gonna need to make a little few moves this year. That's not obviously the bullpen, and they of course Dombrowski's gonna be shopping for a bat. But if these price tags are way blown out of the water for him, which I don't think so far they are, but again, it's just how much do you value the prospects and and again, just what do you find ultimately necessary? And I believe that Nola, Bohm, Crawford, and those are some gambles right there. Is how confident are I believe in Nola. I'm not sure how confident I am that he gets back to the playoff and the great era Nola that we've grown up watching. And even along the guys like, okay, is Justin Crawford legit? You sure want to like this is where they called out Rojas a few years ago. Now obviously Rojas was not a touted prospect. He was just more of a developing guy that came out of the uh, international signings. But again, do we want to put that pressure on Crawford? Oh, all of a sudden here, Max Kepler's out, Crawford's in. I'm not sure how well that'll work out, and I might not want to see his face in red pinstripes till 2026. And then even there was another name you mentioned. Even with Alec Bohm, it's just okay. He's gonna come back from the injury. I believe he can't come back from the injury. Come out, play some good ball, and be the vacuum he is at third base, and also get back to hitting his. So if he can be a 300 hitter for the rest out of here into October, finally be the guy we want in October, that could be a great value to the lineup.
The biggest thing is going to be what's the next chip to fall at in between now, let's say the end of the weekend. Who's going to be the next, big name to get moved? We had Naylor tonight. This is reminds me of the Rosarena deal last year to Seattle. It was one of the earliest deals around deadline season.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what the next domino is and how it shifts the market even more as we get closer to the deadline.
For sure, and I honestly I have no guesses. Again, it's such a big market this year, and there's so many names. I couldn't really give you one that I think goes early, just because you gotta wait, and we might just see some more smaller names get moved in the next few days, and the big guys morning of July 31st.
Yep. And usually it's always the smaller guys who have the bigger impact. And I've been saying they have a lot, but Tanner Banks last year has come through as a really good trade for the Phillies.
For sure, for sure. I haven't paid attention to all who they gave up, what he's been up to, but yeah, I've love what I've seen from Banks this year. The expectations that were set for him, he met them. I tell you, great arm out of the bullpen to have.
Yeah, they gave up William Bergola Jr. last year for Tanner Banks.
Good to know.
So I really don't think if the Phillies do something like that again, it'll put them in a really good position. Go ahead.
But yeah, sorry. Yeah, last point there. If they make a trade like that, find a little guy, like a low risk, high reward type guy. Whew, that could be again. That could be another thing that could really pay off. Doesn't need to be the big name at the deadline. Just needs to be a guy that gets the job done.
Yep, that's what it comes down to. It's the little things that matter in October. But we're gonna wrap it up here for episode number 2, the State of the Phightins podcast. Make sure to follow, make sure to subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. Thank you for watching this episode number 2, and we will see you in the next episode.
We'll see you guys.